Well, good day to everyone, and thank you so much for attending our, I think it's one of our first webinars of 2018, and just want to wish everyone a great 2018. Hopefully you had a wonderful holiday season, and hopefully wherever you are right now, the weather isn't too bad. I know that on the East Coast in the US, the weather is kind of a little punishing. So I won't really tell you where I'm at. I'm in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. I think the temperature today is about 70 and sunny. But hopefully I will send some sun your way and you can thaw out from all the nasty weather that's been going on. And no matter where you are in the world, I wish you the best in 2018. As we get started in 2018, we're going to continue with new topics and new ideas and hopefully get you engaged on different concepts. And of course, we'll be focusing on some trends and things that are happening in today's world. And obviously insider threats is not a new thing, but certainly is something that we need to be diligent about and pay attention to. So what I've done today is I've put together what I consider to be kind of a unique view of insider threats. And what I want to do is walk you through some different ways that you can actually take action immediately and then also prepare your environment for when you might actually have some type of an attack so that you can be alerted of that. So we have a lot of good stuff today. I will kind of warn you, we have a lot of information. So if you're trying to work on 2 or 3 different things at the same time, I'm going to ask that you put those things down. This is being recorded, but still, we're going to be going through a lot of information. So kind of hold on to your seats and as we go through the information. I do want to give you a little bit of information about me, as I normally do. Those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Derek Melber. I am currently an Active Directory MVP. I've been an MVP now for about 16, 17 years, both in Active Directory and group policy. I do want to point you to some resources, like I always do as well. You have our blog. You can get to by blog.manageengine.com. You can go to our security hardening site, which is really in line with what we're talking about today. And if you just go to our main landing page, manageengine.com, go to products and just hover, and in the lower left-hand corner, you see security hardening. As kind of a quick tutorial, my suggestion is that you dive to the bottom of this where all these blue bars are, and this is a way that you can actually get information about all these areas in one place, kind of a one-stop shop, so that's pretty powerful. At the end of 2017, we actually wrote a dummies book on privileged access. It has been wildly successful, and those of you who don't have a copy, please click on any one of these links on our webpage. You can download your free PDF version. It's a short read, kind of an entertaining read, but certainly gives you insight into basically how you secure privileged access in Active Directory, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. We'll touch on that for sure. I do want to launch our 2018 World Tour. I know that the World Tour will be starting overseas. Here in the next week or two. I will be hitting some countries such as the Netherlands, the UK. I'll be going down to South Africa and then heading over to Rome. Those are my first couple of stops. So as we get through 2018, please keep an eye out for your email. If we have a stop anywhere near you, I know we'll be going some places in the United States, I think in the June timeframe. Please come to these seminars. They are a great way for you to engage with us, get additional information, and just talk to other people and try to get solutions. That's really the whole goal of the Active Directory seminars that we've been doing. This is the 4th year, so highly successful with those. So with no further ado, because we do have a lot of information to get through, I want to walk you through some material here. And what I want to do is I want to take a look at different aspects of internal threats and attacks. There's no way in 45 minutes I can go through all of them. I don't even know if it's possible to do it in a day because there's so many different ways that we are attacked, and internal employees, internal contractors, people that are inside of our network can try to take advantage of security vulnerabilities and different things that we have. So what I want to do is I want to kind of give you a foundation, a makeup of an insider threat and attack. And then I want to walk you through some different examples of how you can walk through, look at different things, and set up your environment to help you understand what's going on. So let's first of all talk about the makeup of an insider threat and attack. It could be anyone. It could be the brand new hire that you have from university, that's 20, 21 years old. It could be the 70-year-old gentleman that's been working in finance forever, or anyone in between. Who knows who it is? The idea isn't try to determine who it is. What we need to do in IT is know that anyone inside of our organization can be a threat. And we need to be aware of the landscape. So things to consider. And some of these are things that you actually control. First of all, what level of privilege does the user have? Because if the user is a local administrator, they immediately have certain capabilities that someone that doesn't have local administrative capabilities have. For example, installing software that's going to be used to attack the network. Okay? We need to know what level of privilege they have through Active Directory groups. Are they an administrator? Are they a DNS administrator? Are they a schema administrator? Who knows what they are, right? So locally is their local machine. Active Directory gains access throughout the domain. And then you have user rights, and user rights actually configured per machine. Not only do servers have them, domain controllers have user rights, as well as workstations have user rights. So just make sure that you understand the concepts around how privileges are granted. And then you also have privileges in applications. So for example, let's say that no one has any privileges on their local machine. The user doesn't have any privileges in Active Directory, but a group that they belong to is inside of an application, giving them full control over that application. Well, the application could actually be a database, and that way they could have access to the data in the database. So it really just depends on the level of access that they have and how they're going to potentially attack the network. Now, how are privileges granted in Windows? Well, there's group membership, which we talked about in Active Directory groups. Also locally within their maybe administrators group. Access control lists, these would be the permissions that are on files, folders, printers, Active Directory objects, inside of applications, user rights, as I mentioned. And then you could also get elevated privileges through stolen credentials. If I can acquire someone else's credentials, not using my own, I'm using someone else's, and they may be a domain admin. Okay, so I can do this through attacking. I can do this through, over the shoulder, getting the information. I can hijack. Who knows what can happen? And then, of course, there's Windows OS vulnerabilities, which is probably in this list very common when it comes to getting elevated privileges, which is why throughout this presentation, I will be talking about patching. And we all are kind of afraid of patching, but we need to be cognizant that patching is going to help us protect our networks. So when we look at past the things to consider, we need to look at who is attacking us. Now, of course, there's more than just two different types of people, but I want to focus on two different types of people that will want to attack us. Those people that don't really know what they're doing, and those that know exactly what they're doing. Okay? The accidental one, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I was going to delete that folder. I didn't know that I accidentally included the entire folder when I emailed it out. Who knows what it is, right? Oversharing access and credentials. I was going to go on holiday, so I gave my username and password to the woman in the queue next to me, and she took advantage of that. Phishing attacks, right? Obviously, this is a very common form, and we'll talk about how to hopefully remedy some of these things, which is, of course, the whole point of our webinar. And then we have malicious attacks. We have internal people that might insert malware, and that way they're using malicious code to get information. They can access information inappropriately. Again, they can do this in a variety of different ways. They can get access in a way they shouldn't. They can go to another machine where someone is logged in and they can email themselves that information. They can put themselves in a group maybe they shouldn't have access to. And usually these people are wanting to cause damage. So these are really the ones that we really have to be concerned about. So now that we understand how people get privileges, we understand who really is going to take advantage of those privileges, whether it be accidentally or on purpose, what can we do for action? Well, I think the accidental threats, we have to educate on behavior. But I want to be kind of brutally honest here. If our current employees in the year 2018 don't know what an accidental issue is, I don't think educating them is really going to get us too far. It's not going to get us 100% spread on making sure that it doesn't happen again, right? So now we need to move into more technical things. We need to reduce or remove password sharing. How do we do that? Well, part of it's education, and part of it is, well, maybe we don't have a password at all. You know, multi-factor authentication is becoming more and more popular. So this whole idea of getting rid of passwords is something that many organizations are looking at. We need to negate sharing of sensitive information. So maybe they shouldn't have access to the sensitive information to begin with. And if they do, then maybe we need to take technical action so they can't continue to share things incorrectly. And when someone leaves the organization, we need to secure their user account, okay? Well, what about the attackers? Well, the attackers, we really have to throw a lot more technology at them. We're going to scan for malicious signatures. We're going to scan different devices, whether it be the storage devices, whether it be their PC, whether it be their mobile device, right? We're going to configure firewalls, which we're going to configure firewalls at the border as well as internal. We need device firewalls, making sure that we allow and disallow certain types of communications. We need to monitor and alert inappropriate access and changes. By far, one of the most important ones on this list. Okay, so the idea is if we don't know what's happening, it's impossible to stop. So we have to take action on that. Okay, and then we have to negate common attacks. So if we look at this list, I think two of the most important ones are the last two on the list, because this is where we really haven't been over the years. We've been scanning devices. We've had firewalls forever. We've been throwing education at everyone. But really what we need to do is we need to make sure we know what's going on our networks. So what's going to give us the biggest return? I think that monitoring and negating common attacks are. So this is where I'm going to encourage you to spend a little bit of your time understanding how to monitor, understanding what the common attacks are, specifically in a Windows Active Directory environment, so that you can secure and lock these things down. I think if you can actually take advantage of these concepts early in 2018, your overall network throughout the year is going to be more secure as you move into 2019. So for monitoring, obviously we want to look at failed logons and locked out accounts. This is going to indicate to us that potentially someone is trying to hack in as someone else's account. Modified access control lists. If I currently don't have access to a file or folder, but I want access, somehow, some way, I'm going to have to modify that access control list or how I gain access to it. In essence, there's only two ways. Well, there's probably three or four, but the main two ways are changing that access control list or adding myself to a group that's already on the access control list. So those are some different things that we're going to have to monitor. Now, when it comes to common attacks, we have to look at a variety of different things. There's obviously more than these four things that are going to be common attacks. But these are things that I feel many people overlook. Obviously not patching, but I'm going to encourage you to patch, okay? LAN manager and NTLM authentication, securing accounts that have left the organization, securing new user accounts. Now, these last two may seem like, Derek, we do that. I'll be honest, I go into a lot of organizations, I talk to a lot of administrators, and organizations aren't doing this to the level that they want. So you're going to have to take action on this. So how do we take action? What are the issues and how do we take action? Let's first of all talk about authentication protocols. Now, if we look at the landscape of authentication protocols, at the top of the list we have Kerberos, then we have NTLM v2, and then at the bottom of the food chain we have NTLM and LAN manager. Well, where are our vulnerabilities? They're with NTLM and LAN manager. Okay. In an Active Directory environment, it is nearly impossible, and I'm going to say it is impossible, to eliminate NTLM v2. You cannot force every application on your network to use Kerberos. You just can't do it. Some things are hard-coded, and they don't even have applications that support Kerberos for some applications. But If you have an application that is using NTLM and LAN Manager today and they can't use NTLM v2, I'm going to suggest that you go and find another solution. Or I'm going to give you some stop gaps, but they're not going to be things that are that easy to implement, but at least I'm going to give you the solution for them. Okay? Why is NTLM and LAN Manager so bad? Well, there's limitations on the password length. A LAN Manager password can only be 14 characters long. No more, no less. If you put in less than 14 characters, it's going to pad it with nulls, making it 14 characters. The generation of the hash that's actually protecting the password is not as strong as you get with NTLM v2 or Kerberos. So immediately we have some weaker things related to passwords that are using LAN Manager or NTLM. And of course, they're easy to crack. Well, why can't we just get rid of it? Okay. Legacy applications require these protocols. Service accounts need to authenticate to AD if they're servicing these legacy applications. So we have issues built into our networks. Every single one of us on a webinar does. I have met very few organizations that have been able to get rid of LAN Manager and NTLM. If you're one of them, pat yourself on the back. It's not an easy task. If you want to move towards a more secure environment, well, here's a punch list of solutions. Number one, and these go from easiest to more difficult, but also less effective to more effective. Use passwords greater than 14 characters. Now, here's the idea. If LAN Manager and NTLM can only go to 14 characters, however, you put in a password that is greater than 14 characters, it immediately negates the use of LAN Manager and NTLM for authentication. Makes sense? All right, so here's what you do. Let's jump into the environment here. I have a live Active Directory environment. If I come down here to my service accounts, right? And I give this service account a password which is greater than 14 characters, this service account can no longer function with NTLM or LAN Manager. Now, what if it needs to function with NTLM or LAN Manager? Great, give it a 14-character password. But every other user in your environment, right? Every other user in your environment, force that user to put in a password greater than 14 characters. Make sense? Now the question comes, how do you do that? Well, Derek, I've been working with Active Directory forever. Inside of group policy, it limits me to 14 characters. Let me show you. If I go to Group Policy Management Console and I open up any group policy object and I go to where the password policy is defined, so here, you will see that the minimum password length, if I try to make this 20 characters, it defaults to 14. Well, that's a built-in hard-coded thing from Microsoft. However, if you go and get solutions that are designed to overcome these limitations, you can actually force passwords greater than 14, right? Minimum password length. I can come in here and give it a value greater than 14. Inside of AD Self-Service Plus, I actually have policies. So I can have one policy for my service accounts, which are 14 characters. I can have another policy for my other users in the environment, which are greater than 14 characters. This is technically how you solve a problem like this. Because what we don't want to do is just say, okay, everybody, here's the new rule for 2018. Everyone has to put in more than 14 characters. Do you think your users are going to immediately just do that? Or are they going to try to put in the length of password they've been using for the last 10 years, which is 7? Well, they're just going to use 7. And you can't force them if you don't technically force them, okay? Now, that's step 1. 2, determine if NTLM and LAN Manager are being used at all. Because if they're not being used at all, then we can move immediately to the bottom and disable NTLM and LAN Manager. How do you determine if LAN Manager and NTLM are being used? I'm going to give you a couple of solutions here. First of all, I'm going to jump into, actually, I'm going to go back to my slide and I'm just going to show you this. If you go into group policy, here at this location, right? Computer configuration policies, Windows settings, blah, blah, blah. You can actually go in here and you can force NTLM and LAN manager to be allowed or negated. Now let me show you where this is actually in the operating system. So I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to go to group policy. I'm going to go to my Windows settings, security settings, local policies, security options, and down here you have all of these LAN manager settings. For example, this one. This one has 6 different settings. Notice this one says refuse LAN manager and NTLM. Well, you can't go in and just refuse it without knowing first if it's being used. So that's where using Windows, you can audit incoming NTLM traffic. Target this towards your domain controller, and then the end result, okay, let me show you where this is. The end result shows up in Event Viewer. Now it's a little bit hidden, so I want to show you this. Inside of Event Viewer, if you go to your application and services logs, Microsoft, Windows, you actually have an NTLM node that's an operational node. So notice this is actually showing you if NTLM were used, if it would be negated or not, according to that group policy setting. But this only tells you part of the story. It really doesn't tell you all of the NTLM and LAN manager authentications, okay? My recommendation is you use a tool that's actually designed to do this specifically and allows you to look at this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you live what this looks like. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go to my reports, my log on, log off reports, log on activity, and you will see here that I have added an authentication package which tells me what's being used, okay? Now watch this. I'm going to come over here to my client. My client's going to work for me here. Maybe. Oh, nope. My client is deciding to misbehave a little bit. Come on, Windows 7 machine. There we go. All right. So I'm going to come in here and watch what I do. Okay. I am doing nothing more than making a connection from my client to my server, which is the 100 IP address. Okay. Now, I make the connection. I come back over here to my report and I refresh. Okay. Now watch this. If everything is correct, you will notice that is an NTLM touch right there. I hope you see our potential problem. I need to know if NTLM is being used. NTLM can actually be used with a simple connection to an IP address versus a DNS domain name. Notice that? That's the power of a tool like AD Audit Plus. It can show you things that the Windows Event Viewer just can't handle, okay? Now, some other things that you need to do. Make sure that you are restricting the use of NTLM and you don't store the NTLM password hash. These settings are in group policy. They're in the same location, right? I just showed you this one here, LAN manager authentication level. This can actually completely negate LAN manager. And the top one here is don't store the LAN manager hash. This is actually storing it in the Active Directory database. We don't want to do this, so we want to negate this. If we negate this, it's going to help us with attacks against the LAN manager hash. Microsoft just recently, in the last couple of years, added all of these restrict NTLM configurations. Now we can actually get it tailored down to the individual machines, the individual objects that are going to be using NTLM or not, okay? This is where you can go with a solution around NTLM and LAN manager. It's a little complicated, but it's worth it because right now we're being attacked at the NTLM level, at the password level. I just wrote a white paper in 2017 talking about this. We need to become more familiar with NTLM and LAN Manager, the risks, and how to actually protect ourselves. The fact that anyone can make a touch to an IP address and that using NTLM is a little scary. That's why we need to take action to make sure we're not using that authentication protocol. Okay? Awesome. So what that's going to do is that's going to help when people inside want to attack passwords and their hashes, because people want to attack LAN Manager and NTLM because they're so easy to crack. Okay? All right, our second step. What does it take to reduce the attack against password hashes and tickets? A little bit different than the earlier question. The earlier question was, do I have NTLM or LAN Manager? This one's talking about, well, what if I use Kerberos or NTLM v2? Well, this is a different problem. I'm going to suggest that you do a couple of things. You're going to go and do research on pass the hash, pass the ticket, the golden ticket, all of these keywords on these 3 websites that I'm pointing you to. Okay? Awesome information. The last one there on the list, the PTH from Microsoft, actually has some excellent white papers walking you through how to protect against these types of attacks. Know the basics of these attacks. First, the first basic, these attacks are virtually worthless if the attacker doesn't have local admin credentials. Okay? Now, if we look at the makeup of these internal attacks, who's going to be attacked first? A domain controller, a server, or a desktop? Well, a desktop, right? So what we want to do is we want to make sure that users aren't local administrators on their desktop. We want to make sure that no one logging in is a local administrator on a desktop. We want to help protect this because according to Microsoft, and if you want to see documentation on this, I can easily send it to you. According to Microsoft, once the attacker has credentials on one desktop, within 48 hours, they normally can get domain admin credentials. That's according to Microsoft and pass the hash attacks. A little scary. So what we need to do is we need to protect our environments from these. How do we protect? What can you do? Don't give users local administrator privileges. Take your users out of the local administrators group on their desktop. Okay? 2, don't allow users with elevated privileges to log on throughout the network. You need to track this. Okay? Here's what I'm talking about. If Derek, who's a domain admin, constantly wants to connect to other computers as Derek, well, those other computers are going to cache Derek's hash, and then if someone attacks it, now they have a domain admin password hash, which is what pass the hash is looking for. But what I can do is I can go into a tool like AD Audit Plus, and I can look at different reports. I can look at when Derek logs on to a Windows 7 machine. I can look at when certain people are logging on. I can create custom environments for this. So now, if I go back, let's see if I can find one here. Let's look at the last 6 months. So I don't have anything of when Derek's logging on, and this is what we want, right? But you can set up these reports completely customizable. You can look at when anyone that has elevated privileges is logging on to any machine that you want to specify. You can even do groups of machines. You can't do that just using the event viewer. But now you want to track this behavior. Ensure that the local administrator account has a unique password, okay? Microsoft LAPS, the local administrator password solution, is the solution for this. And AD Audit Plus actually helps you track when people use LAPS. So now what you can do is you can use a combination of these different concepts. You can make sure that you know when people are using certain things. So if LAPS is enabled, you can look at password expiry, you can look at when people actually leverage the LAPS account, all of these things. You can't do that using the event viewer. but you have to know when people leverage this, because LAPS, the local administrator, is what people are wanting access to, okay? Now, if you're not familiar with LAPS, here's what it does. When you install LAPS, it takes the local administrator account and gives Active Directory the power to control that password, so that Active Directory controls the password, not the local machine, thus giving every single installed computer that has LAPS installed a unique local administrator password, okay? Don't use the same password for local administrative accounts on different computers. I know it's easy, but people are taking advantage of us. Negate internet browsing with privileged accounts. Don't allow administrators and domain admins to browse the internet. It's not needed. There has to be controls in your environment, okay? There are shatter attacks, there are attacks, there's malware, there's all these nasties that can get installed on machines, and immediately what it does is it looks for the local, or it looks for the privileges of the user that's accessing the website. Force changing of passwords often, okay? This is vitally important. Now, what you can do is a couple of different things. Let me show you. If I go to AD Self-Service Plus, back in this enforcer, I can come in here and define when passwords expire, okay? I can also do it within Active Directory and group policy. Also within AD Manager Plus, let me show you a couple of things here. First of all, I can run a report of users that haven't changed their password recently. So let's go to password reports, users with passwords that never expire. Now, once I get this list, what I can actually do is select everyone on the list, and I can then go in and I can reset their password. Now, let me tell you what I'm doing here. I am doing a search in Active Directory based on certain criteria. In this case, users that don't have passwords that expire. Then, based on the results, I can reset their password through AD Manager Plus. Now, could I automate this? Absolutely. So that means that I can use the tool like AD Manager Plus to ensure that certain users that don't want to change their passwords are actually having their passwords being changed. Extremely powerful. Okay? These are certain things you need to start thinking about. So I can force the changing of passwords either through AD Self-Service Plus, forcing them to reset their passwords at a certain interval. I can also do it in AD Manager Plus for those accounts that absolutely say they're not going to have their password change. Well, guess what? I can force it through a tool like AD Manager Plus. Okay? Awesome. How do you reduce and monitor privilege escalation attacks? So the other things that we were talking about are things that you can put in place to kind of monitor more behavior. What I want to do now is I want to help reduce and monitor when the attack is occurring. You can do it at a couple of different levels. First, you can do it at the workstation level. Remember, we're talking about insider threats. If it's an insider threat, they're going to try to do things to their local computer to give them an advantage to attack the network, right? So what we want to do is we want to know if they create a new user. We can do that using AD Audit Plus. We want to note if they modify the local administrators group, if they modify a user right, okay? All of these are possible with AD Audit Plus. Super simple. Look at this. If I go to AD Audit Plus and I go to a report for server, which also can include workstations here, I can go to local account management and I can look at recently added members to a group. Come in here, add in my workstations, and right here you can see that in the last 48 hours, I can track when any of this occurs, okay? It tells me exactly what happened on which individual desktop. This is virtually impossible without a tool that's easy to do this. I can also look at policy changes such as user rights being assigned. Again, I go and I can look at my workstations and I can know if I have any changes. Oh, I know that I have these. I just looked at this just before I came on, so I know it's here. I must be looking at the wrong one. Okay, but this is going to tell me if I have certain changes that are going on right here. See, user rights removed. I removed a user right. So this is the power of a tool like this. I am looking at detailed user rights. I'm looking at workstation creation, modification of users and groups. This is the level of detail that you need to know if things are changing. Now, I want you to take a step back and think about what I just showed you. If you have 1,000 desktops and you know the #1 attack on your network is an insider threat, and you know that users don't have local administrator privileges, however, the local administrators group on one machine was modified, doesn't that tell you something? How do you know that today? Tomorrow, implementing AD Plus, super simple. You can know it in an alert in real time. Powerful. But we also have to track things through Active Directory, okay? We need to look at repetitive failed logons. We need to know when accounts are locked out, right? Now, this is one that I created last year, but I want to show it to you anyway because it's extremely powerful in what the information can get you. I just told you about locked out accounts, right? Well, you can look at locked out accounts from any user or for a particular type of user. What if you have an executive that gets locked out today? Do you want a phone call from the executive or their secretary asking to be unlocked? Or do you just want to go and unlock it once you know it's locked? Well, why couldn't you do the same thing for service accounts? For users that are, let's say, database administrators, domain admins. If any one of these are locked out, you can get immediate alerts on these types of things. So you know what's happening. We also, inside of AD Audit Plus, allow you to look at Account Lockout Analyzer. So know when someone's actually locked out, well, what happened? We give you the details and we give you the history so you can do a little bit of research on that, right? It's going and getting at the recent logons, telling you about the logon history, whether it was OA or ActiveSync. Then you get the history to know, okay, what happened? Was the account disabled? What happened here and there? Giving you insight into what's going on, okay? Extremely powerful. Not only do you have tools like reports and real-time alerts, you also have analysis tools that give you the insight that you need because these types of things are going to occur. AD group modification. If someone comes into your Active Directory environment and they modify any of the key privileged groups like the schema admins, let's say someone goes in and someone's adds Bart to the schema admins. If that happens in your environment, how do you know? In my environment, I know because AD Audit Plus tells me in real time that that occurred right here. Bart was added to the schema admins in real time because I have alerts set up for this. Can this alert be emailed to me? Of course. This is the power and the breadth of what you need to help defend against attacks. ACL modifications, right? If someone goes and modifies an access control list, you need to be notified of that. Well, first of all, you have to set that up, right? But once you have it set up, you can use a tool like File Audit Plus to go in and look at these types of changes. You have all of these pre-built reports to know when things are changing, right? So if I have a security permission change, I want to know what's going on, right? So if I want the previous month for whatever I'm looking at, let's look at the last 6 months, right? Don't you want to know if a permission changes on finance information? How difficult is that without a tool like this? It becomes extremely difficult. If I haven't had a change since November 21 and all of a sudden something changes, that should be a red flag for you that potentially you are under attack. Without a tool that's going to give you those alerts, you won't be notified of that. For some of you, you have to do this for regulations and you just don't have the tool in place. We looked at user right modifications, right? So we looked at AD ACL modifications and file ACL modifications. In Active Directory, you have something called delegation. Delegation itself gives someone access to do something in Active Directory. You need to be made aware if someone changes that, because it's nearly impossible. If you have Active Directory here and someone goes in and they modify the delegate control wizard and they add someone in here, you have to somehow be able to notice that that happened. Well, a tool like AD Audit Plus gives you that information. I actually have right here reports dedicated to that. If an OU permission changes, I want to know about that. I want to be able to get details about the ACL, the new value, the old value, and what exactly was added to that value, so I know exactly what the change was. I don't want you to work at this. I want you to just be notified. Attacks are very complex. How they get in really doesn't matter nearly as much as what they do when they get in. Let's control what they're doing first, and let's allow other situations to control the other parts. We have to know if they're in, though. Microsoft has a current statement called assume breach. It changes your mindset. Sometimes we don't even want someone to access certain files. We can set up in both AD Audit Plus and File Audit Plus the access to certain files. But without the laundry list of being able to track and monitor and alert these types of behaviors, unfortunately, you just don't know what's going on in your network. So what we've gone over today is basically who we need to be concerned about. We have both malicious and just unaware users. Both of them are dangerous. So we need to know how they make mistakes, know how they attack us, so that we can defend against them. I said we need to defend against attacks and also things that we know can be attacked. And we need to monitor everything. I showed you how to configure and control authentication protocols like NTLM and LAN Manager. We talked about how to protect against password attacks, like pass the hash and pass the ticket. Most of these are don't do things that you normally do. You're going to have to change the way your behavior is on your network. Finally, we talked a big time about monitoring privilege escalation attacks. We have to understand how people elevate privileges. Once we know that, we can just monitor those things, such as group access, creation of accounts, user rights, ACL changes. Those are the ways that they attack us. If we monitor all of that, we now know what's going on our network. So I know that a lot of you were asking questions as we went through. All of your questions should have been answered as we went through. There was a team working with me to answer those questions. I want to thank them. I also want to thank you for asking the questions. If you do have any follow-up questions, please email me, Derek@manageengine.com. Part of my job is to help solve your problems, whether it be with a tool or just a problem that you're having that you need solved with Active Directory group policy or security. That is my job. I tour the world doing that for administrators around the world. If one of our tools can help you, great. We're going to provide you that tool. But if not, let's just at least get some of your questions answered. Hopefully this gave you some insight into how attacks occur and what you can do on your networks to help prevent these from occurring. And if they do occur, for you to be notified. No one can prevent everything. So what we need to do is take action to prevent what we can, and what is actually getting through that, we're notified of that so we can take immediate action. I want to thank everyone for attending. I know your time is valuable. I want to wish you the best in 2018. I know that we have quite a few webinars coming up in the next couple of months. Please come and watch them. Even if you get one nugget out of the 45 minutes, that's worth it. As we tour the world, please come and join us at one of our seminars. If you do have any other questions, you can email me. You can email the AD Solutions events team. And until next time, I want to thank everyone on my team for helping me out. I want to thank you for attending. Until the next time I see you live or on a webinar, I just want to wish you the best. And until the next time, good luck. And this is Derek Melber for Manage Engine and the AD Solutions team. Thank you for attending.